In the closing years of the 19th century, thousands of Orthodox Christians from the Middle East crossed the ocean in search of work and safety. They arrived in unfamiliar cities, surrounded by languages and customs that were not their own. Many found themselves without priests, without churches, and without guidance. Far from their ancestral homelands, these immigrants struggled to preserve their faith. Some drifted into other Christian traditions. Others simply ceased attending services. The challenge was not persecution by sword, but the slow erosion that comes from isolation and neglect. Into this landscape stepped a monk formed in Syria and educated in Russia, a pastor whose heart burned for his scattered people. Saint Raphael of Brooklyn would spend 20 years gathering the lost sheep of North America and building foundations that endure to this day. Saint Raphael was born around 1860 to devout Orthodox parents of Syrian origin. Because of violent persecution in Damascus, during which Saint Joseph of Damascus and others were murdered, his family fled for safety to Beirut. There, in exile, the future Bishop first saw the light of day. He was baptized on the Feast of Theophany in 1861 and received the name Raphael. When stability returned, the family went back to Damascus. The child grew within a household marked by faith and endurance, shaped by the memory of suffering and displacement. As a student, he excelled in his studies. Financial hardship threatened to end his education in 1874, yet assistance came through Deacon Athanasius Atala. The Patriarch of Antioch accepted the young Raphael as a student of the Patriarchate in preparation for priestly service. His diligence soon distinguished him. By 1877, he was chosen as a substitute teaching assistant, and in the following year, he was appointed teacher of Arabic and Turkish. His intellectual gifts developed alongside a deepening sense of ecclesial responsibility. On March 28, 1879, he was tonsured a monk by Patriarch Hierotheus and began serving as the Patriarch's personal attendant. The discipline of monastic life refined his character, strengthening obedience and humility. When Patriarch Joachim III of Constantinople invited Antioch to send a deserving student to study at the theological school of Halki, Raphael was selected. The opportunity marked a decisive expansion of his theological formation. At Halki, he immersed himself in study and ecclesiastical life. In 1885, he was ordained to the diaconate in the school chapel. The following year, he completed his theological training and prepared to return to serve his homeland. Back in Syria, Patriarch Gerasimus valued his learning and frequently brought him on pastoral visitations. When the Patriarch was absent, Deacon Raphael preached to the faithful. His voice began to carry weight within the church. Still eager to grow in knowledge for the sake of service, he sought permission to pursue further studies in Russia. With blessing granted, he departed for the Theological Academy of Kiev, entering a new chapter that would shape his destiny. At the Theological Academy of Kiev, Deacon Raphael deepened his theological knowledge and strengthened ties between Antioch and the Russian Church. His studies were not pursued for personal advancement, but from a conviction that learning must serve the pastoral needs of the faithful. In 1889, Patriarch Gerasimus directed him to assume leadership of the Antiochian Representation Church in Moscow. He was ordained to the holy priesthood and soon elevated to the rank of archimandrite. Administrative responsibility now joined scholarly formation. The Representation Church carried significant financial burdens, including a large debt. Through careful stewardship and discipline, Archimandrite Raphael reduced the deficit substantially. His administrative competence matched his spiritual seriousness. He also arranged for Syrian students to study in Russia, hoping they would return to strengthen the church in their homeland. His concern extended beyond immediate duties. He sought renewal for Antioch through education and native leadership. During this period, tensions arose within the Patriarchate of Antioch. Foreign hierarchs continued to dominate its administration, and many Arab clergy desired greater representation. Raphael became a vocal advocate for restoring governance to native clergy. He wrote letters to bishops and influential laymen and published articles in Russian newspapers explaining the Antiochian situation. His efforts were bold and carried personal risk. Advocacy came at a cost. When Metropolitan Spiridon was elected Patriarch of Antioch in 1891, Raphael refused to commemorate him in liturgical services, believing the election unjust. As a result, he was suspended from priestly functions. He accepted the suspension with composure and continued defending Antioch's cause through writing. Eventually, reconciliation was achieved, and the suspension was lifted. He was permitted to transfer to the jurisdiction of the Russian Church. Taking a position in Kazan as an instructor in Arabic studies, he remained in Russia until 1895. Then, an unexpected invitation arrived from New York. Arab Orthodox immigrants in America were asking for a shepherd. In 1895, Archimandrite Raphael accepted the invitation of the Syrian Orthodox Benevolent Society of New York. Like the Apostle Paul responding to a distant call, he crossed the ocean to serve immigrants who had settled far from their ancestral church. He arrived in New York on November 2, 1895, and was received by Arab Orthodox faithful who longed for pastoral care in their own language. Within days, he assisted at the Divine Liturgy in the Russian Church, demonstrating ecclesial unity across cultures. Soon he established a modest chapel in Lower Manhattan, dedicating it to Saint Nicholas of Myra. Furnished with sacred items he had brought from Russia, the chapel became a spiritual home for immigrants navigating a new and unfamiliar society. As news reached him of scattered Arab Orthodox communities across the continent, he understood that his ministry could not remain confined to one parish. Many families lived without priests and faced the temptation of spiritual neglect. In the summer of 1896, he embarked on his first extensive pastoral journey. Traveling by train, carriage, and ship, he visited 30 cities from New York to San Francisco, seeking Orthodox Christians in towns, farms, and remote settlements. Wherever he found them, he celebrated the Divine Liturgy, performed baptisms and marriages, heard confessions, and instructed the faithful. Homes were transformed into temporary sanctuaries when no church building existed. He remained attentive to relations with other Christian traditions, encouraging respectful dialogue while guarding the doctrinal integrity of his flock. He insisted that unity must rest upon the teachings of the 7 ecumenical councils. Understanding the importance of liturgical resources, he published an Arabic service book in 1898 titled The Book of True Consolation in the Divine Prayers. This work strengthened both clergy and laity in their spiritual life. The mission expanded rapidly. More communities requested priests, and Raphael worked closely with the ruling Russian hierarch to bring clergy from Syria and to prepare suitable candidates for ordination. The foundations of an organized Orthodox presence in America were being laid. As parishes multiplied, Raphael recognized the need for permanence. Temporary chapels and rented halls could not sustain a growing flock. He began raising funds for a proper church building and for a cemetery where Orthodox faithful could be laid to rest according to their tradition. In 1901, he secured land in Mount Olivet Cemetery on Long Island, ensuring that his people would have a consecrated resting place. This act provided spiritual continuity in a land where many immigrants felt rootless and uncertain about their future. The following year, he purchased a church building on Pacific Street in Brooklyn and had it adapted for Orthodox worship. The transformation required both financial sacrifice and careful planning, yet the community responded with dedication. The church was consecrated with great joy, marking a decisive step in the establishment of the Saint mission. What had begun as a small chapel in Manhattan now stood as a visible and stable presence in Brooklyn. Raphael's pastoral journeys continued. He traveled through the northeastern states, the Midwest, the South, and into Canada. His ministry extended beyond Arabs to Greeks and Russians, reinforcing unity under the omophorion of the Russian archbishop. He also addressed practical challenges within communities. In places where divisions threatened unity, he intervened patiently, reconciling disputes and restoring peace. His authority rested on personal integrity and fatherly concern. Recognizing the importance of communication, he founded the magazine Al-Kalimat in 1905. Through its pages, he offered theological instruction, moral guidance, ecclesiastical news, and official announcements, linking distant parishes through the printed word. He understood that the future of orthodoxy in America depended upon the education of youth. Many children no longer spoke Arabic fluently. He encouraged the use of English in worship and supported translations that would make services accessible to the next generation. Through careful organization, publication, travel, and pastoral vigilance, Raphael transformed a scattered immigrant population into a structured ecclesial body. His work prepared the ground for an even greater milestone in American Orthodox history. As the Diocese of North America expanded, Archbishop Tikhon found it increasingly difficult to oversee every parish across the vast continent. A reorganization became necessary to ensure closer pastoral supervision and more effective administration. Recognizing Raphael's tireless labor and leadership among the Syro-Arab faithful, Archbishop Tikhon proposed that he be appointed as auxiliary bishop. The Russian Holy Synod received the proposal with favor and acted unanimously. In 1903, Archimandrite Raphael was elected Bishop of Brooklyn, while continuing as head of the Syro-Arab Orthodox mission. The decision affirmed both his pastoral accomplishments and the trust placed in him by the wider church. On the third Sunday of Great Lent in 1904, he was consecrated bishop at St. Nicholas Cathedral in Brooklyn. Bishops Tikhon and Innocent performed the service. It was the first Orthodox Episcopal consecration to take place on American soil. The vestments worn at his consecration were a gift from Tsar Nicholas II, symbolizing the bond between the Russian Church and the mission in North America. The event marked a new stage in the institutional life of Orthodoxy in the New World. As bishop, Raphael ordained priests, assigned them to parishes, and continued extensive visitations. He worked closely with Archbishop Tikhon in diocesan governance, ensuring that communities received regular sacramental care. He also strengthened ecclesial unity among diverse Orthodox groups. At that time, parishes of different ethnic backgrounds remained united within a single diocesan structure. The Church in America functioned as one body under shared episcopal leadership. Raphael viewed episcopal office as service rather than privilege. Public honors left him uncomfortable. When praised for his work, he described himself as an unworthy servant fulfilling his duty. The consecration did not diminish his missionary zeal. Instead, it widened his responsibilities. The Bishop of Brooklyn remained a traveling shepherd, determined that no community would remain without guidance. In the final decade of his life, Bishop Raphael continued his pastoral journeys across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Distance and fatigue did not deter him. He remained attentive to every parish, seeking to preserve unity and strengthen discipline. He devoted particular concern to the younger generation. As immigrant families settled permanently, their children increasingly spoke English. Raphael supported the use of English in services and religious instruction to secure the future of orthodoxy in America. His writings multiplied. Through articles in Al-Kalimat and other publications, he provided theological clarity and moral guidance. The printed word allowed him to teach communities he could not visit frequently in person. Despite heavy responsibilities, his personal life remained marked by simplicity. He was gentle with others, yet disciplined with himself. Those who met him encountered a fatherly presence, joined with firmness in matters of faith. By the time of his repose, the Syro-Arab mission had grown to 30 parishes with approximately 25,000 faithful. What began as a scattered immigrant population had become an organized and stable ecclesial body. Toward the end of 1912, he was diagnosed with a heart ailment. Though weakened, he continued serving as long as strength allowed. Even illness did not interrupt his commitment to the divine liturgy and pastoral care. In 1915, his health declined further. After weeks of suffering borne with patience, he reposed quietly in the early hours of February 27th. Those near him called his name, yet he had already entered his rest. His ministry had spanned 20 years in North America. He gathered the scattered, founded institutions, ordained clergy, and established patterns of worship that would endure beyond his lifetime. Saint Raphael of Brooklyn left behind more than buildings and publications. He bequeathed a vision of missionary episcopacy grounded in faithfulness, unity, and pastoral sacrifice. His legacy continues wherever Orthodox communities flourish on American soil. Saint Raphael of Brooklyn stands as a witness to missionary faithfulness in a land far from his birthplace. He crossed oceans, endured hardship, and gathered a scattered people into unity. Through patience, education, and pastoral courage, he laid foundations that continue to sustain Orthodox life in North America. If this story strengthened your understanding of the Church's mission, consider subscribing to the channel and joining us as we continue exploring the lives of the saints who carried the faith across cultures and generations.